Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Gao, and here's what happened this week. Taiwan was dealing with fallen trees, ruined crops, flooding, and landslides after Typhoon Kong-Rey vented its fury on the country, leaving 2 people dead and hundreds injured. In the north, teams are working to clear blocked roads and rail lines of fallen trees. Along the east coast, hundreds of people were trying to return home after landslides inundated mountainous areas. While in southeastern Taitung, farmers grappled with heavy losses after taking a direct hit from the typhoon, which was the strongest to hit Taiwan in 30 years. Now, much of the east coast was battered by the storm, including Yilan in the northeast. Tiffany Wong was there.
Here in Yilan County, the government has ordered most people back to work and school today. But for many, their normal life is not back quite yet. For example, this family that usually sells bumper cars is instead spending their day cleaning up these fallen trees after Typhoon Kong-Rey. The storm brought over 1 meter of rainfall over the past 24 hours in this area and strong winds over 100 kilometers per hour, which caused major damage, especially to trees. Now, this is an area that's been extensively hit by landslides caused by that heavy rain, and it's also brought road closures. And now today, that's all starting to reopen. Residents told me that yesterday the wind was especially strong in the afternoon, and that knocked down hundreds of trees in the area, which caused the most damage. Although the storm has passed, residents say that it'll take more than a day to recover from this after what they hope will be the last typhoon of the season. Kama Shri and Tiffany Wong in Yilan County for TaiwanPlus.
Down in southeastern Taitung, farmers were assessing the damage to their crops. Rick Lauer went to a rice valley in Taitung to see how farmers there fared.
Well, this is Cheshang. Usually at this time of year, it's a valley that is a sea of gold. Rice, ripe and ready for harvest. But after Typhoon Kong-Rey, many of the fields look like this, flattened and flooded by the storm's wind and rain. Now, Taitung County is one of the country's most important agricultural regions. A lot of the country's fruit and rice is grown here, and Typhoon Kong-Rey hit when this produce was weeks, and in the case of this rice, just days away from harvest. This was a particularly late typhoon, and it's having a devastating effect on agriculture here. We spent the morning talking to some of the region's farmers.
因为真的割稻前10天了啦，所以稻子很重，所以说那么大的台风，风加雨，真的损失最少都是30% 以上。
For many people here, this typhoon means 6 months of work quite literally going down the drain. Farmers here today telling me that nowadays they not only need to know how to grow their crops, they also need to know how to predict the weather.
That was Rick Lauer reporting from Taitung. Now, people are coming together across Taiwan to clean up the damage caused by Kong-Rey. And as John Van Trieste reports, there's a lot to be done.
On Taiwan's east coast, the scars of Typhoon Kong-Rey are everywhere. This middle school in the town of Yuli was among the many damaged buildings.
树木的部分就是被吹倒很多，然后我们3楼的屋顶也大部分都被吹下来。
And it wasn't just the wind. Multiple rock slides blocked off a major highway down the east coast, and it will be some time before they can be cleared.
退的隧道前面的一个土石流量体大概12000方，最快到明天中午的时候进行抢通。
It isn't all bad news, though. A Czech couple that went missing while on a hiking holiday managed to get an SOS out as the storm overtook them. After a blustery night sheltering in place, a helicopter managed to get them out of the eastern mountains where they'd gotten stranded. Elsewhere in the country, things are slowly returning to normal. After a night of diversions, cancellations, and dramatic failed landings like this one, Taoyuan Airport, the country's main gateway, is back to running as usual. And while some areas have canceled classes and work for a second day, much of the country is back to school or the office. But there are signs Kong-Rey won't be forgotten soon. Even here in the capital, Taipei, where damage has been relatively light, there were fallen trees and debris everywhere. Work crews have been at it since dawn, trying to bring life here back to normal. But as the state of this downtown park suggests, there's a lot of work left to be done. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taipei authorities were closely watching Kong-Rey's progress because much of the capital is in a low-lying basin that is prone to flooding. To keep the water at bay, the city is equipped with a series of flood control measures. Chris Gorn has more.
This is the Xincheng Jianguo water pumping station. It's one of dozens of water pumping stations in Taipei designed to keep flooding off of the city streets during periods of intense rainfall like this typhoon. Much of Taipei's urban center sits in a basin between two rivers, the Jilong and Danshui rivers, and the elevation in this area is only about 10 meters above sea level, so flooding is a big risk. The city has built flood walls with closable gates along most of the riversides in the city. Now, those gates are closed today because the river's water level is especially high. That's in part because the pumps move water from designated collection areas in the city back into the rivers or to emergency reservoirs. This, along with other measures like diversion channels and levees, all work together to keep flooding to a minimum. Even with all these measures in place, flooding still can happen. So Taipei residents need to remain vigilant and be prepared for anything. Scott Huang, Lian Lian, and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's economy grew more than expected in this year's third quarter. GDP rose nearly 4% from July to September, mainly due to greater global demand for Taiwan's tech exports geared toward AI and advanced computing. Taiwan is critical to the global tech supply chain, with leading semiconductor companies like TSMC supplying major players like NVIDIA and Apple. Premier Zuo Rongtai says he disagrees with former U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated claims that Taiwan stole the U.S.'s chip industry.
当然不同意，这是我们自己发展出来一个非常领先世界的产业。
Zuo's statement came during a heated exchange with opposition Kuomintang lawmaker Wang Hongwei. Wang said she's concerned that Trump's claims could spread and cause harm to those involved in Taiwan's chip sector. The premier said the government will continue watching the U.S. election, but he said that he is confident that Taiwan-U.S. ties will continue to grow. On Monday, Taiwan's defense ministry reported 22 Chinese military aircraft operating around the country. Out of those planes, 17 breached Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. Now, this airspace is not part of Taiwan's territory, but the military uses it for security purposes. This increased activity came just one day after Beijing said that it would take countermeasures in response to a $2 billion arms sale to Taipei. That U.S. weapons deal includes an advanced air defense system called NASAMS. To find out what Beijing means when it says it'll take countermeasures for the arms deal, Jaime Ocon spoke to Ben Lewis. He is the co-founder of PLA Tracker, an organization that tracks military activity around Taiwan.
Now, Ben, China's foreign ministry said it was going to take countermeasures against the U.S. After it sold this air defense system to Taiwan. And on Monday morning, we see the defense ministry here in Taiwan reporting 22 Chinese planes around the country. Are these planes part of that countermeasure?
I think it's very likely, yes. I mean, I think countermeasures has kind of become a widely encompassing term for, gray zone military activity, economic coercion, sanctions on U.S. companies, individuals who are providing arms to Taiwan. So I do think this is part of it, and I think it's not going to be the last thing we see.
Now, last week, the United States announced it'd be selling Taiwan this $2 billion arms sale package deal with the NASAMS anti-air system, as well as radar equipment. How significant is this arms sale to Taiwan?
These weapons are very significant. I mean, NASAMS, is a powerful capability. It has been combat tested in Ukraine. It's something that Taiwan needs in terms of bolstering its air defense. One thing we've learned from Joint Sword 2024B, PLA conducts a massive air exercise. Best way to counter that is to have good air defense. And the radars you get with that are going to help Taiwan better monitor the situation. So the concern that a lot of analysts have had is that the MND does not have enough capabilities to fully capture the air and maritime domain. I think, additional radars is going to relieve that burden. And the missiles that you get with it are powerful capabilities.
And in terms of overall military activity from China, what are we seeing? Is there a clear increase in military ships and planes around Taiwan that we're seeing?
I mean, we've completely eclipsed the record of activity that was set in 2022. We had 1,738 incursions total in 2022. It's now towards the end of October. We're at 800 more incursions than that. And basically what that equates to is just the intensity of China's course of activity in the gray zone, surrounding Taiwan, in the air and on the water, is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. And most of it has happened since May, when President Lai was inaugurated. So it's a clear coercive campaign by Beijing targeting the Lai administration attempting to weaken Taiwan's defenses through attrition. Likely it's going to continue, and I think it has very dire consequences for the region in terms of the precedent that it's setting.
That was Ben Lewis, co-founder of PLA Tracker. Now, aside from the NASAM system, Taiwan is also one step closer to securing 1,000 attack drones from the U.S. Bloomberg reported that Taiwan's defense ministry had signed a deal with the U.S. government in September, and that detailed contracts were in the works with 2 U.S. defense companies. Taiwan has been trying to incorporate drones into its asymmetric warfare strategy against China, which has been stepping up threats to take the country by force. Separately, Reuters has reported that China asked the U.S. to change the wording it uses to describe its position on Taiwan's independence. The U.S. government currently says it does not support independence for Taiwan. But during a meeting last year, Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly asked U.S. President Joe Biden to use language actively opposing it. Official sources say the Biden administration rejected that request. China has increased diplomatic, economic, and military pressure on Taiwan in recent years. Taiwan's foreign ministry says China has no right to interfere in its diplomatic relationships after Beijing called on Guatemala to end ties with Taiwan. The statement comes after China's foreign ministry said that Guatemala should make the, quote, right decision and establish relations with Beijing. Taiwan's foreign minister met with Guatemalan leaders recently to mark 90 years of ties between the two countries. Ling Jialong was leading a delegation to 4 of Taiwan's diplomatic allies in Central America and the Caribbean. A French naval vessel transited through the Taiwan Strait late Monday night. Taiwan's defense ministry says the frigate was sailing north, traveling from the Philippines towards Japan. The last transit of a French warship was in April of 2023. This was the 3rd foreign vessel to pass through the strait in October. Leading art galleries are in Taipei to showcase their collections at a major contemporary art exhibition. Every year, the event draws collectors and art enthusiasts from across Taiwan and the world. Wesley Lewis was there.
Showcasing what contemporary art has to offer, the annual Art Taipei Expo has returned to Taiwan's capital. Now in its 31st year, it's not only the country's leading art exhibition, it's one of the oldest and most influential in the Asia-Pacific region. Over 120 galleries from Taiwan and across the world are here. One of the themes at this year's expo is sustainable development. And this Taipei-based gallery has curated a selection that highlights the adverse effects of human activity on our planet.
他想要让人类去在意更多我们没有在意到环境的问题，比如说这个是测试核弹的部分，对，所以平常我们不会 care 到这个部分。那他透过这个作品，想要让我们意识到我们没有平常意识不到的问题所在，这样子，
This commercial event gives both emerging and well-established galleries a platform to promote their pieces. The event also attracts the city's art enthusiasts.
我觉得艺术博览会是很重要，就是艺术家很重要的一个发表的舞台，这样子。
我很喜欢，就是这里可以看到每个艺术家用不同的媒材去把他的心血放在他的作品里面。
Sculptures are amazing, interesting works. Yeah, lots of imagination and artistic.
This year's showcase is diverse, with some galleries displaying pieces inspired by traditional Chinese calligraphy, and others taking a more whimsical avant-garde approach. As galleries here highlight the ever-changing and expansive nature of contemporary art, the organizers of this event continue to work towards positioning Taipei as a cultural hub in the global art market. Commerce Xu and Wesley Lewis in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us for Here's What Happened. Head on over to our website to see more of our news reports and other programs. Finally, we leave you with more footage of flooding and damage caused by Typhoon Kong-Rey across Taiwan. I'm Eric Gao. Have a good weekend.